going to record my screen. Lovely. Lovely. So thanks very much for joining. It's lovely to see you on this Monday evening, very warm Monday evening. So we're going to come to our seated position on our mat. As always, however's comfortable for you. So whether that's in Sukhasana, so easy pose, a nice cross-legged position. Maybe you want to take the legs out, especially when it's quite hot. Kind of let loose a bit, or sit on a chair, sit kneeling, whatever's good for you. And we're just going to start by just taking some circles, not for very long, just to give ourselves a little bit of a rock, a little bit of a move before we come into a place of stillness in the middle. So you're just going to take your circles as far as is comfortable until you'd like to kind of settle somewhere in the middle for a few moments of centering. Starting to bring some awareness to the breath. And really bringing some awareness to that exhale as well. So starting our practice by really trying to let go of our day so far. Let go of our Monday, we got through it. So inhaling in a nice mindful deep breath. And exhaling, letting everything go. So nice and loud, dropping the shoulders, dropping anything that you're carrying. Coming to a place of stillness just as you're ready. And this first few moments of stillness can be really tricky. So don't kind of beat yourself up if you find it difficult to concentrate or stay still. Or even, we're so pressured with our time, and often yoga is one thing on our list of things to do. And sometimes we get to here and we're like, okay, move on, let's start doing some asana, let's start moving because we're in a rush. So really try and appreciate these first few moments, bringing our attentions to where we are today, checking in with the body. How are you feeling today? And maybe it's the first time all day you've really been able to ask yourself that. So doing a bit of a scan, what's going on in your feet today? What's going on in your legs? What's going on in the torso? Seeing if there's any areas of tension or tightness or even pain or discomfort that we want to be mindful of today. So if it's comfortable for you, maybe lowering your gaze or closing your eyes. Just to really draw inwards for a few breaths. So as I mentioned, we're going to be working on some hip openers today. So we're going to be starting quite low to the ground and then working our way up to doing some quite strong standing poses to kind of wake up the legs and engage and activate them before moving into a few hip openers to find some mobility and some motion in our pelvis and in our hips. But as always, everything after you is just an invitation. So you're not obliged to copy what I'm doing. Our bodies are all very different. So really kind of cater to your needs today. If anything's not comfortable or if anything is painful in any way, then pull away, come out of the pose the way we went in and find an option that's going to be more suitable for you today. So something that might be useful, I should have mentioned earlier, is going to be a block or a brick. If you haven't got a block or a brick, then we can work without them, that's fine. But a hard-backed book can also be helpful. And sometimes people say a book is a good replacement, and it's not always suitable. But in this case, actually, a hardback book will work absolutely fine. I hear that Harry Potter Goblet of Fire is a good size and shape if you happen to have that. So there's absolutely no rush. I can see a couple of you have dashed off, but we'll all wait for you. We're all here. So bringing our hands together in front of our chest. So to Anjali Mudra, prayer position. Just setting an intention for our practice today. How are we going to move today? How are we going to behave today? How are we going to treat our bodies today? Breathing that intention in. Breathing the intention back out. So we're going to come to a lying down position. However, I'm going to give you the option, if you'd like to, is that we're going to place that block under our backs. And I know that sounds quite uncomfortable, and I'm not going to lie, it can take some getting used to. But if it feels painful in any way, then please don't do it. But you can expect that it may feel a bit different to what we're used to. But what we're aiming for, we're all women here, you want the block to be roughly where your bra strap would be. So kind of the center of our backs. So hold that block to you and kind of lower yourself down so you can get it in a nice position that's comfortable for you. And if you need to play around with it, that's fine. And we're just going to drop our head over the block and take the legs back out. So almost what we're aiming for is for that block to be in the center of our rib cage. So you've got a few vertebrae that are kind of hanging over and leaning down towards the pelvis. And you've got a couple vertebrae before your neck that are kind of leaning down towards the head. So a nice little raise, a little bump in your spine. And you might feel that that's kind of pushing your spine up in between your shoulder blades. If the block or the brick is too much, then you can always try it with something that's less, kind of not as high, a bit shorter. So maybe a smaller book or even a cushion. We're just trying to get that slight lift in the spine that is pushing up into our shoulder blades. And the reason I wanted us to hang out here just for a few minutes is because I guess that's the sensation that we're aiming for when we're in positions like downward dog. So if it's comfortable for you, raising your arms up and overhead, taking them behind you. And from this lying down position, we can start to feel the sensations that we're aiming for when we're in our downward dog. Because a downward dog, it's really about lengthening the spine. So there's often a lot of focus on the legs. A lot of people get really fixated on trying to straighten the legs and get their feet flat on the floor. But really what we should be aiming for is having that nice long line from the wrists up the spine, up to the hip bones. And if you need to bend your knees to achieve that, then absolutely do that. So just checking in here with the block underneath the back can kind of give us a bit of an idea of what we're aiming for. So taking a couple deep breaths here. If it's not comfortable for you, then obviously feeling free to remove the block and just lie down on your mat and start to stretch out from the toes and from the fingertips. Just going to come up to a bit of a peak. Lovely. And then on an inhale, really stretching out, so pushing through your bottom heels, reaching out through your fingers. Noticing how when you push through your heels, your calves may switch on, maybe your feet lift off the ground slightly. And then maybe pointing your toes and noticing how the muscles in the tops of the legs then engage and switch on. And then when you're ready, bringing ourselves up, maybe pushing yourself up on your elbows, removing the block from under you, and just coming back down to a lying down position. And then noticing this sensation as well. It can equally feel a bit strange when we take that block out now and everything. You really feel the contact with the earth, so notice that. Super. And then again, pushing out through the heels, start to rotate the ankles just to wake them up. If you'd like to, taking your arms up and overhead and giving them wrists a roll as well. And then we're going to slowly start to lift the left knee up towards our chest. Start to hug that knee in, so interlace the fingers, wrapping them around that knee. Continuing the ankle rolls if they feel nice to you, and really bringing that knee into your chest or into the side body if that's more comfortable. So giving it a good old squeeze. You'd like to bringing your nose up to your knee. Feel the sensation, maybe move more into the lower belly. And then exhale, dropping the head back down. Lovely, and then bringing your palms down to the sides, maybe sending that left heel back out. And this time bringing the right knee in. Just squeezing into your chest. Maybe you feel a stretch in the thigh of the right leg. Maybe you don't, that's okay too. And again, if you'd like to, you've got the option to bring your nose up towards your knee. And releasing the head back down. And we're going to bring the left knee up to meet the right, so we've got both our knees, and just hug both of them into your chest. So Apanasana, wind relieving pose. So we could give ourselves a good old squeeze. Hug yourself like you love yourself. And bringing your nose up to meet the knees if you'd like to. That adds a little bit of a stretch to the shoulders. Maybe alternating between pointing the toes and lifting the toes. Dropping the head. Sometimes these movements, they're not anything fancy, but I really believe that a little really does go a long way. So sometimes even just these simple movements can help us get back in touch with where we are today. Lovely. And then from here, we're going to take the left foot back out. So reach that to the end of your mat and give your right knee another squeeze in. But this time we're going to take our left hand to that right knee and slowly start to twist it over our bodies. So keeping your shoulders on the floor, only go as far as you can before your shoulders start to lift. So your knee might not get back down to the floor on the other side, and that's okay. So keeping the gaze the opposite direction if that's comfortable for you, just start to feel that twist. Taking lots of lovely inhales. Maybe on the exhale, you can twist a bit further. And if you'd like to, then bringing up the toes of the left foot and seeing if you can reach them with your right arm. Only if you want to add on that little extra twist. It's almost a bit of a dancer pose, but on the floor. And then if you're holding those toes, letting them go, taking them back down the mat, bringing the right knee back across us and sending it down. Giving anything a shake off if you'd like to. And I'm going to take it to the other side. So bringing our left knee up to our chest this time, interlacing the fingers to pull it into us, and then taking the right palm just to gently twist it over. So we're not yanking it into place, but we're just using that hand as a bit of a support, a bit of a guide to rock us into the twist. Making sure that we're keeping those shoulders on the floor. Not worrying if the knee doesn't get to the floor. I think you'd have to be quite hypermobile for the knee to get to the floor, so it's okay if it's not there. And if you'd like to, lifting those toes up, so reaching them around towards your bum, towards your hands, and then reaching for the toes or the foot with your hands. If you are doing the option with the foot in your hands, and really try and push your hand into, sorry, not push your hand, push your foot into your hand. Feeling the stretch and the rotation in the spine. Breathing into it, giving the muscles and the organs and the abdominals a good rinse out. Maybe thinking of it like a dishcloth that you're wringing out for the water. And when we're ready, rolling gently back to center. Bringing our knees up and giving ourselves a little roll just to massage out the spine. Just to come back to a more neutral position. Super. So from here, we're going to drop our feet to the mat again this time. So our knees are parallel out in front of us, in line with our hips. So making sure we've got good firm grounding on the mat. We're going to lift our left ankle up to the sky and then gently place it on the right knee. And then from here, just start to push out through that left knee, so that knee that's raised. And you can use your hand to kind of push and guide as well if you'd like, but very gently. And just start to kind of open out through that hip. Okay. So you can stay here if this is a nice stretch for you, so keeping the foot nice and engaged. If you can feel this kind of and your inner thigh and the outer thighs as well, then stay here, focusing on pushing that knee outwards. Or if you'd like to, you can lift your toes off the floor and start to bring your legs closer into you. And that's going to be a slightly deeper stretch. And then you've got the option of taking your hands behind your thighs and holding onto them here, or even interlacing the fingers behind the shin as well. So find a level that's kind of comfortable for you, that you're feeling a nice stretch. If you're here and you're kind of thinking, I'm not really feeling anything here either, maybe you've got super open hamstrings or super open hips, and you can always kind of rock yourself kind of into a more seated and then see how close you can bring that to you that way. But only if you feel like you're not really feeling anything lying down. Super. So keep that foot nice and engaged, nice and active, heel pointing outwards. If you want to take a little rock from side to side, then do. Bringing your nose up to the knee if you'd like to. Feeling the earth beneath you, holding you up. Now when we're ready, we're going to pop that foot back down. Take the left leg up, maybe give it a little push up towards the sky before we bring it down to the earth. And then we'll do the same on the other side. So taking the right foot up this time. Again, maybe giving it a little push up, little squeeze before we take that ankle onto the right knee and start to open up through our left hip. So pushing the left knee out, whether that's with your hand or just with your imagination. So again, if this is nice for you, if you're feeling a nice opening in the hip and a nice stretch, then stay here. Or if you'd like to, lifting those feet off the ground and interlacing your fingers behind your thigh or behind your shin. Let's get a nice stretch in the hamstrings. And keeping the foot nice and engaged. Taking a little roll if that's nice for you. or coming to a place of stillness. Coming back to our breaths, it's very easy once we start doing these movements to almost forget about the breath. And that's the brilliant thing about it, is it keeps doing it for us. But bringing some attention back to the breath again. Are you still keeping those nice mindful inhales in and mindful exhales out? And then when we're ready, taking the foot up to the sky, pushing out through that heel. Bringing the feet down to the floor, but maybe give your feet a little kick out on the earth. Get some sensation back into those feet, into the fascia at the bottom of your feet. Really wake them up. I'm sorry if my stomping is very loud. Super. And then with our knees really firmly planted into the floor, we're going to come into kind of a half happy baby. So we're going to take our left hand and put it really firmly down into the floor next to our thigh, and then start to lift the right leg up towards us. And you've got a few options here. You can either hold it on the thigh and just start to kind of open it outward towards your armpit, or maybe you can hold it at the ankle, or maybe you grab the outer edge or the inner edge of the foot into kind of a more traditional happy baby shape. Or you could even take a toe bind as well if you've got that. You could take your index fingers and wrap them around your toes. So find a place that works for you. Obviously, all of our limbs are going to be very different lengths. We're all different proportions. So find the one that works for you. And on that side, we're just going to start to open out into that hip. So pushing our foot up towards the sky, seeing if we can bring the knee back to our side, to our armpit. But keeping a nice firm base on our right side. Keeping our palm flat on the floor. Super. And then popping that right leg down and taking it out to the other side. And maybe it's different on this side. Maybe you grab it in the same place. Maybe the side's a bit stiffer. That's quite common. So maybe you need to hold it in a slightly different place on this side. And just kind of feeling for what our range of motion is. And it'll be different for all of us. Maybe taking some circles with that hip. And find where your edge is today. And if you're happy to, and if you'd like to, taking the other leg up to meet it into a full happy baby. So again, you can do this holding the edges of your feet. You can hold your toes, or you can wrap your arms around your knees, around your thighs, and take a little rock here. Super. Bring our feet back down to the floor. So we've got one more asana on the floor today, and then we're going to be coming up, which then I'll be able to see your faces, which will be quite nice for me. But we're gonna, if you've still got the block, and don't worry if you haven't, then we're gonna pop that between our thighs and hold that in place, just to keep it, our thighs really switched on and engaged. So you want your legs to, again, be parallel with your hips. So nice kind of equal spacing between your hips, your knees, your ankles, taking your palms down to your sides. And we're going to start to roll into some bridges, so keeping them nice and dynamic at first. We're not going to be holding them for long. So gripping that block between your thighs, on the inhale, we're going to push down into our hands, which are on the floor, and start to push our hips upwards, bringing them back down on the exhale. So we're not holding them just yet. So inhale, pushing up towards the sky. Exhale, rolling the hips and the pelvis back down. And just work through that with your breath. So going at your speed, your pace. Really grounding down into the feet, into the arms, into the hands. Squeezing the glutes and the muscles in the bum as you get to the top. This is Setu Bandhasana, so bridge pose. But we're keeping it nice and gentle for the start of our practice, just to wake up our spine a little bit. And then maybe when you're ready, your next inhale in, we're just going to hold it for a couple breaths. So maybe when we're up here, kind of tuck the shoulders under ever so slightly, but continue to push down through those arms, through those hands and feet, up towards the sky. Amazing. You look really good. Bringing our attention to the breath. And then when you're ready, dropping the hips down, removing the block and hugging the knees back into our chests. A little roll just to counter the effects of that last pose that we did. And then from here, we're going to come into a seated position. So you can either roll onto your side and push your way up, or if you'd like to, you can take a rock and roll up to seated. So taking the outer edges of your feet and rolling yourself back up. Lovely. It's nice to see all your faces again. So we're going to come into a cross-legged position here. And again, we're going to focus on opening up those hips. So taking the leg that's in front, so for me it's my right leg, whichever leg you have in front, we're just going to start to lift it up from the toes. And that same movement that we were doing lying on the ground in our happy baby and half happy baby, we're going to do this from seated. So you can either do it holding your foot in your ankle and just working into that movement there, finding your range of motion. Or you could take one hand to your knee, so you've got your knee in one hand and your foot in the other. Or if you're super flexing, you've got lots of space in this hip already, you might want to take your foot into the crook of one elbow and your knee into the crook of the other, interlacing your fingers, kind of cradling your leg here, so rocking your baby. So remembering to sit up nice and tall. And taking the leg up on the inhale and then popping it back down. Coming back to cross-legged. I'm going to take a little drink because it's very hot. If you haven't had a drink yet, I would suggest you do too. Lovely, and then we're going to do that on the other side. So again, it might be the same for you. You might, if you had it in your hand and if you had your foot in your hand and your knee in your hand last time, it might be the same on this side. It might be slightly different. So find the option that works for you. And from seated, try and work into that hip. And notice if this feels different than it did lying down. Obviously, gravity is working in different ways now against us now that we're seated. So different areas of support, different areas of balance. Notice if that changes this movement for you at all. And then when you're ready, we're gonna pop this foot back down. So we've got one foot where we want the ankle to kind of be placed against our thigh. We're gonna take the other leg out wide. So you've got almost a bit of a V shape. We've got one foot that's nicely tucked in to our leg. And then the side of the raised leg with the leg that's straight out. We're going to pop that palm down just by our calf. And then just start to stretch into that side, so towards the foot that's out. Nice little pulses here to open up through the sides. And then maybe twisting ourselves to face the foot, bringing that arm down, and then slowly just walk, crossing the arms over to the other side of the mat, taking the stretch on the other side. So nice soft elbow, soft bend. Not aiming to get super low just for the sake of it, just feeling a nice stretch for you. And then rolling back to center when you're ready. And then we're going to swap the legs, so taking the opposite leg out nice and wide this time, bringing the other ankle into our thigh. Then taking the hand down and repeating that stretch on the other side. So thinking about kind of going up before we go over. Maybe taking some wrist rolls. And then again, turning our torso so we're facing those toes before we come down. And then walk ourselves over to the other side. Lovely. Super. Right, then coming back up to center, we're gonna come into a tabletop position. So from cross-legged, you can cross your ankles and then gently roll over them. Or maybe you like to swing your legs around. But coming to find a nice tabletop position. So setting ourselves up nice and firm, so having our fingers are spread nice and wide, wrists below the shoulders, knees below the hips. And choosing whether you want to keep your toes flat on the floor, pushing away, or keeping them tucked. That might feel slightly different on the knees, so find what works better for you. And then inhale, we're going to drop the belly, taking the gaze up towards the sky. And then exhale, reversing that movement to find our cat. So pushing up through the shoulder blades, pushing away from the earth. And then just taking a couple cat cows. Feeling any clicks, anything in your body. Trying to push through each vertebrae. And again, switching on the glutes as you move, so you really feel your pelvis move as an extension of your spine. And then coming back to neutral, so that point between those two states, a flat back position. We're going to tuck the toes, and then on an inhale, lift the knees just slightly off the mat, so just an inch or two. And we're just going to hang here just for a couple breaths, just to feel the muscles switch on in the thighs, feel that strength. Maybe your legs start to wobble, feel that little bit of heat before we push our hips back. And then bring them up to downward dog. Lovely. Taking your dog for a little walk if you like, so alternating as you push through the heels until you can come to a place of stillness. So pushing our hips back, so we're in that nice inverted V. Not worrying if the heels come to the floor or not, but trying to find that sensation that we had with the block under us earlier. So as we push our hips back, pushing kind of through our shoulders, taking the gaze to the feet and pushing up nice and strong through the hands. Feeling those hips go up towards the sky. Keep breathing. And then when we're ready, we're going to look ahead and either walk, step, or jump to the top of our mat. So you can take a nice slow walk, And bring one foot up then the other. Or if you'd like to, take a jump. Coming into our Uttanasana forward fold. So from here, really push down through the feet, push those hips up towards the sky before you start to roll up vertebrae by vertebrae, nice and slowly, walking the hands up the legs to Tadasana. Lovely. Palms facing forward. So maybe giving the legs a bit of a shake out. We spent quite a lot of time on the ground. Just waking them up. Taking a drink of water if you haven't had one since the last water break. Obviously, please do drink whenever you like. Don't wait for my cues. I only drink tea and wine, so I'm not very good at remembering to drink water as it is. So lovely. So from here, when we're ready, we're going to repeat that figure of four shape that we did lying down, but we're going to try it standing up this time to bring a little element of balance into it. So really rooting down in our mountain pose, pushing through each four corners of the feet, pushing through the big toes, standing up nice and tall, dropping the shoulders, chest up nice and proud to the sky. And when we've got this firm set up, we're going to shift our weight into the right side and slowly start to lift the left leg at the knee. And when that knee is parallel with your hip, we're going to stop here just for a breath or two. So finding a drishti, which is a focal point, so something you can focus on straight ahead of you just to help you find your balance. You continue to push down through that standing toe, lifting up nice and tall. So engaging the abs, engaging the muscles of the thighs. Lovely, you all look amazing. And then when you're ready, we're going to take the ankle of your raised foot and balance it just above our knee on the opposite leg. And if you'd like to, bend into that knee slightly so you create yourself a little shelf for your foot. Lovely. So coming back to that drishti, that focal point, find your balance again. Pushing through the toe of the standing leg. Feeling the muscles in the leg switch on so we can build that strength. And then if you'd like to, on an exhale, seeing if you can fold a little bit deeper. Maybe you feel your foot shaking from side to side. It's meant to do that. It's keeping you balanced, so embrace the wobble. And on an exhale, we're going to fold over, bringing our fingertips to the floor. So we're folding over that hip entirely. Yeah, lovely, amazing. So then dropping the head, dropping the neck. Just hanging over that balance, maybe pushing away with your hands if you can reach. So maybe you're on your fingertips. I've got short arms, I'm definitely on my fingertips. So pushing away from the floor. Shining the hips up to the sky, folding over. And then we're going to lift our toes off the floor just so that we can place them back down again. Because sometimes that then helps as we push back through that foot, coming back up to standing. Releasing that leg, so taking the ankle off the knee, and then giving our legs a good shake off. You all did amazing. Brilliant, and then we're going to take it on the other side. So pushing back down through those feet again, finding that mountain pose. We're going to shift our weight into the left side this time and start to raise the right knee up towards the sky, stopping here when your knee's parallel with your hip. Pushing away from the earth. Seeing if it feels any different on this side. So finding a focal point. And then when you're ready, taking that ankle and placing it just above the knee of your left leg. Finding your balance here for a couple breaths. As you breathe, really pushing up to the sky. And then if you'd like to, we're going to start to bend that knee and bend the hip just slightly. And take a couple breaths here. So keep pushing down through the toe of that standing leg. Feel the muscles of the legs cling to the bones. And if you'd like to, Again, folding over, bringing my fingertips to the earth, folding over that standing leg. Come see how you're doing. Amazing. You all look so cool, like little flamingos, but very strong flamingos, so well done. Brilliant, and then from here, when you're ready, we're gonna, again, if you want to, lift the toes and place them back down before we push back up. Come to standing. Lovely. Maybe taking a few little twists here, a bit of knocking on heaven's door, just to release the muscles of the legs. So maybe twisting the ankle slightly, swinging the arms as far as you'd like. Maybe you like big swings, taking up space. Maybe you want to keep them a little bit closer to you, more chilled out. That is fine. Lovely. So then from here, we're going to walk to the short edge of our mat. So come into the top of our mat. And again, find that mountain pose. So find that nice, strong, engaged standing position. And we're going to play around with a warrior on this side. So start to shift the weight into your right side. And again, lift up that knee so it's parallel with the hip, just where we were before. So we've been here a couple of times, so noticing how that feels. This time, and then taking the hands to the hip, we're going to push that leg out behind us and take it down the mat. Try not to look where you're going. Lovely. Super. We're in our high lunge. Perfect. So then find a position that you can kind of hold comfortably. So, you know, if there's a bit of a wobble, that's fine, but we don't want you to feel like you're about to fall over. So if you set the legs wider or closer, please do. And if you'd like to, dropping the knee before we push it back, just to see if we can get a little bit closer to the floor and feel this thigh start to really switch on. So wiggling the foot back. Super. So remembering here to keep that knee either directly above the ankle or just behind, not going so far over that we can't see our toes. And really start to push down through that back heel and through that front foot. So feeling the muscles of the legs really switch on. You can keep your hands on your hips, or if you'd like to, take them up and overhead as if you're holding a beach ball. Lovely, pushing away from the earth. And then on an exhale, bring those fingertips down to frame the foot. And then we're going to drop the knee. So if you've got anything going on in the knee, you might want to fold your mat over just to provide a bit of cushioning, or pop something under it. But we're going to drop the knee to the floor. And then similar movement to what we just had with the arms, we're going to open up again. So really nice and light on the fingertips, so we're not crashing into that front leg. Start to lift up our arms. Take them overhead, same beach ball shape. And start to bend forward into that front knee, opening out that back hip. Pushing away from the earth. If you'd like to, you can take a little back bend here, or you can stay up nice and stacked, whatever feels better for you. If it doesn't add value to your practice and your life, then don't do it. Super. And then bringing the fingertips back down to frame the foot, pushing up with that back leg, rocking back, and then bringing it to our Uttanasana, front of the mat. Lovely. Dropping my head down, and again, rolling up nice and slow. Super. We're going to do it again on the other side, and I've already forgotten which side we just did. But I think we are dropping our weight into our left side this time. We start to lift up the right knee, finding our balance. If I've told you the wrong side or you've already done this side, then feel free to swap. And then when you've got that nice firm balance without looking, we're going to take that heel back behind us and drop it onto the mat. Lovely. So taking a high lunge on this side, so again, dropping the knee to the ground and pushing back if you'd like to find a bit more space. Some nice strong warrior legs, both feet pointing forwards. And if you'd like to, taking the arms up and overhead, pushing away from the earth, nice and fierce. Dropping the shoulders away from the ears, palms facing inwards. Pushing through that back heel. Remembering to breathe. Remembering to smile. Just going to come and have a look. Lovely, really nice. Just being careful not to take our knee too far forward, so making sure it's in line with our ankle. Yeah, brilliant. Perfect. Lovely. And then again from here, when you're ready, no rush. We're going to bring our fingertips back down to frame the foot. I've just come back the wrong way. Lovely. And then folding over the mat if you'd like to, or finding some cushioning to bring that knee back down to the earth. Super. And start to rock forward, opening up that back hip. And staying nice and light on the fingertips, so we're not kind of collapsing our weight into that front leg. And then when you're ready, bringing your arms up and overhead. Hold that big beach ball. Pushing away from the earth. Amazing. Lovely. Then we're going to bring our arms back down, so framing the foot again. But this time we're going to lift that knee back up. Put the hands flat on the floor and then take the front foot back into our downward dog. And we're going to take a couple breaths here. If you prefer to take these breaths in child pose, then just bring your knees down to the floor nice and wide and push the hips back. Super. So coming back to our downward dog, pushing back through our shoulders, so pushing our hips up to the sky, trying to bring our gaze and our face, I guess, and our head kind of through the shoulder blades, gaze on the back feet. Lovely. Then from here, we're going to move into our pigeon pose. So I'm giving you some warning, if any of you are familiar with pigeon pose, just so that we know where we're headed. If you're not sure what pigeon is, then just follow along with me. But we're going to start by raising our left leg up to the sky into a three-legged dog. Perfect, beautiful. So pushing away through that heel, pushing down through the standing leg, opening up through that hip. And then inhale, we're going to bend at the knee. And really strong core, nice and engaged. We're going to start to bring that knee through in front of us. So pushing through the shoulders, keeping the core engaged as we lift the knee. And then we're going to place the knee down at the left wrist, just behind, and then bringing the foot somewhere behind the right hand. And it might be quite a long way behind. And from this position, start to wiggle the back foot up so you place that back foot down on the earth. Lovely. So the angle, find the angle that's comfortable for you. So our knee is going to be somewhere behind our wrist, but then it's really up to you whether that foot is, more horizontal or kind of back tucked in under your pelvis. Lovely. And then pushing away through the hands, pushing down with that back foot to get a little bit of lift in the pelvis. We're going to take a few breaths here. Dropping the shoulders. Keeping the glutes nice and engaged. We're trying to keep our pelvis quite straight and active. So if you're happy up here, then we can continue the pigeon up here. Or if you'd like to, another option would be to come down onto your elbows, kind of fold into it. Taking some deep breaths. Lovely. And when you're ready, coming back up onto your fingertips or onto your hands, finding a little bit of lift. Perfect. Before we tuck the toes, come up onto our knee and bring that leg back behind us. Super. Maybe from here, just do a couple hip dips side to side, just to release that tension. And then when you're ready, curl the toes under and push back up into your downward dog. So reconnecting with the breath. I'm not going to be here as long this time. And then we're going to start to raise the opposite leg. So raising the right leg up to the sky, coming into our three-legged dog. So pushing up through that heel, pushing down through the back heel, bending the knee, and on an inhale, rocking ourselves forward, so keeping the knee nice and close into the chest. And then lowering that knee down behind the right hand. Lovely. And then maybe we wiggle back slightly. Maybe you can find a bit more space with that back leg. And then coming up onto our fingertips. Spine nice and long. Feeling into our pelvis. Dropping the shoulders on an exhale. And if you'd like to, but only if it feels good for you, dropping the elbows to the floor and folding over into it, finding some relaxation. Again, if that doesn't feel good for you, then don't do it. Stay nice and lifted, nice and engaged. Again, try not to collapse into one side, keeping everything nice and stacked. Breathing. Then from here, we're gonna dip into our right hip just slightly, so taking the weight back onto the right side and then swinging your leg back round. If you have to use your arm to get it round, that's fine. So that we can come into a nice seated position. Lovely. I'm just going to take one final twist. So with our right leg on the bottom, we're going to take it out so it's at almost kind of a 90-degree angle. So your shin is parallel with the edge of your mat. Keeping your foot nice and engaged so your ankle is nice and switched on. We're going to place that bottom leg here in line with the mat. And then taking the ankle of the opposite leg, so your right leg, we're going to place that on the knee, but we're not going to drop the other knee down to the ankle. We're going to keep it nice and horizontal, so it's almost like you've got two straight lines of your legs. So make sure you keep both of your feet really engaged, really switched on here, keeping them nice and active. And then we're just going to twist to each side, so taking your right hand to your left knee, your left hand behind you, just starting to twist around from the rib cage. So gently twisting, maybe taking your gaze over your shoulder. And on the exhale, seeing if you can just gently pull around slightly further. Remembering to stay up nice and tall. And your next exhale, coming back to center. Lovely. And then we're going to swap the legs over. So this time taking the left leg underneath. So lining your ankle and your knee up with the long edge of the mat. And then gently placing the other ankle on that knee. So you've got that nice gap between your ankle, between your knee. Sitting up nice and tall, so pushing away from the earth with your pelvis before you take the twist to the other side. So left knee, left hand even, on your right knee. Right hand behind you, and on an exhale, twisting around to the back, taking the gaze with you. So these are our thunderbolt legs. If the gap isn't comfy for you, then you can always wedge something into it. So maybe a blanket or a cushion or a block. And then inhale, back to center. Then uncrossing those legs and taking any movement that you want to just to kind of shake them out. So maybe coming to butterfly, giving them a bit of a shake. Maybe bringing the knees in and giving our legs a bit of a stamp. Or even just giving yourself a little foot rub can feel quite nice. Taking any final movements you'd like to take before we come into our Shavasana. Lovely, yeah, taking some nice rocks. Taking some big yawns. I don't know if that's intentional or just where we're at, but either way it's good. Brilliant, and when you're ready, bringing ourselves down to our mats for Shavasana, so our final relaxation pose. And using anything that you'd like to make this extra comfy or extra cozy. So maybe popping something under your knees, like a rolled up blanket or a cushion. Maybe taking a blanket over you. I won't be doing that today in 27-degree heat, but if that's what you'd like to do, then please do. And starting to draw your attention back to your breath. Just breathing lots of love in on the inhale. And lots of love out on the exhale. Noticing the different places that the breath comes from in your body. So noticing how the belly rises and falls. So noticing the belly grow and take up space on the inhale. And drop again on the exhale. If the mind starts to wander, which is very easy to do, especially at the end of the practice as we start to think about what we're doing next, bringing it back to the breath. And congratulating yourself every time you notice that your mind has wandered and you bring it back to the breath. Noticing the good job that you just done. Maybe noticing how the breath feels in the rib cage. So maybe the ribs expand and take up space as you inhale, and then contract and come back together on the exhale. Maybe that inhale lifts you up slightly as it pushes through your back. Noticing how the breath feels in the chest. There's a very subtle movement in the chest, but just noticing it slowly rising and falling. Maybe lifting and widening your shoulders slightly as you inhale. I think we often associate breathing from the chest as quite a bad thing, quite a negative thing. I think people think obviously encourages quite shallow breathing. But the chest is still important. I think as long as we're breathing from all those 3 different parts, then the chest plays a really important role in our breath. So noticing those 3 different sections working together. Noticing the speed of your breath, the rhythm, the pace that you're breathing at. Maybe following the breath with your mind, following the direction of the breath. Taking these last few moments for ourselves. Thinking back to the intention we set at the beginning of the practice. Did we honour that today? If we didn't, there's always tomorrow. There's always the next practice. So just noticing. Every breath in, a new beginning. Every exhale, a letting go. I'm going to read you some final words just to wash over you. Now that it's Monday, I was thinking a lot about new beginnings today, the start of the week. We're moving into summer. We're gradually moving out of lockdown. Just thinking about beginnings. In out of the way places of the heart, where your thoughts never think to wander, this beginning has been quietly forming, waiting until you were ready to emerge. For a long time, it has watched your desire, feeling the emptiness growing inside you, noticing how you willed yourself on, still unable to leave what you had outgrown. It watched you play with the seduction of safety and the grey promises that sameness whispered, heard the waves of turmoil rise and relent, wondered, would you always live like this? Then the delight when your courage kindled and you stepped onto new ground, your eyes young again with energy and dream, a path of plenitude opening before you. Though your destination is not yet clear, you can trust the promise of this opening and unfurl yourself into the grace of beginning that is at one with your life's desires. Awaken your spirit to adventure, hold nothing back, learn to find ease and risk. Soon you will be home in a new rhythm, for the soul senses the world that awaits you. I love that line about, even though the destination isn't always clear, we don't always know what we're doing or where we're going, but we can trust our instinct, trust our gut, trust our intuition to go with this new beginning, this new adventure. Knowing that if we always wait until we're ready to do something, we might never do it. So returning to the breath. Maybe starting to bring some small movement. Or maybe even clenching or holding a few body parts and then letting them go. So maybe squeezing our toes back in towards our face and then dropping them back down. Maybe clenching our arms and our fists and our shoulders on the inhale, and then exhale, letting them go again. Feeling the effects of our practice kind of integrate into our body, into our mind. And then when you're ready, rolling over, pausing for a moment on your side, and then coming back up to meet us at the mat. And if you'd like to, bringing the hands to Anjali Mudra, prayer position in the chest. Bring our heart up to our sternum, so one final lift up, reaching through the head. Inhaling in, lots of love in. Exhaling, lots of love out. Thank you all of you for sharing our practice with each other, for the little community, for our little Monday night group. Thank you for showing up for each other, for showing up for yourselves, even though it's 27 degrees and the sun is out. It's an honor to practice with all of you and share this with you. The highest in me bows to the highest in you. Namaste. I'm very, very sorry. I have run over by a couple minutes. So apologies if you've not noticed, or you've got places that you needed to be, or if you're just hungry. I don't know what your dinner situation is, so I'm very sorry. I will work on this for next time. I'm just going to turn the recording off.
Thank you, Courtney.